Hello and welcome to the Painters Motivating Painters review video for February 2024. We're having some minor technical difficulties earlier, so if anything goes weird, apologies in advance. If you're unfamiliar with the channel, we're part of a Facebook group where people share hints and tips and tricks about painting miniatures. And as part of that, people can submit one work per month to get reviewed online. And there's chat groups and there's also some other stuff on there. So check it out if you don't know what the video is about. A lot of lovely people, always happy to give advice and help each other out. So that said, we're just going to launch straight into the video. We've got our first piece is some Kingdom Death miniatures by Alessandro Presidi Universitario. No particular feedback sought, so we're just going to give kind of general feedback on this. I think they look quite good. I like the kind of limited palette with the guy with the white hair and white cloth. I think the female figure looks is my preferred one. I just really like the way you've done the red hair there. It's like really cool. And the way like the sword handle has the same kind of color in it. And it's nice as well because you have that limited palette and then that's like a pop color. I think the NMM, the non-metallic metal, on the gold works pretty well. It could be more higher contrast, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like it's still reading as kind of like the way an illustrator would do metal. I think on the sword blades, the kind of steel, it probably could have more contrast to kind of sell that reflective sheen. There's a lot of just gray to it, which makes it look kind of like stony. So I'd expand the areas of like your shadow and maybe don't run like you have the whole edge on one of the swords as like a white line. So maybe break that up a little bit. And you can also do interference colors. That might not be so great with your monochromatic scheme, but just generally having more shadow and highlight and just alternating, having like a bright light, particularly like when you go from like the flat edge of the sword to the cutting edge, have like a really bright highlight next to a really dark shadow, and that'll give the idea that it's a reflection, which is what helps sell that illusion. And then also on the bases, they're cool. They're made of faces as they're traditional. I think you could have more color if you wanted to have them look a bit weathered, like having some like red in there to be like gore or like greens or browns or whatever. Just to like not a huge amount, but it looks like it's kind of like an Agrax Earthshade or a brown wash, but just like blend together a couple of washes while you're doing it, just to add a little bit more visual interest. But they still look good. You could also up the contrast on them to look more like porcelain or whatever, but it's the grain, so it's not a huge priority. But yeah, and overall, I think I quite liked the way you've executed the cloth. And they're very simple and well put together. So fair play. Thanks very much. Jim, would you like to hop in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they look cool. They'll be great little gaming figures. I agree with Matt that the lady looks better for me. She just has better like contrast in the hair and the cloth. So I think with the dude, you could you could definitely push a bit more shadow and a bit more highlight to kind of spread the travel of color a bit more. Same for the hair on the dude, but I think they're pretty cleanly painted, and the skin tones that you've got are really good. Like they're believable pinky hues, so lovely Caucasian skin, and soft contrast. A little bit untidy on some of the separation, like under her belly and around this like bracelet for the thigh, thighlet, whatever you call that thing. I don't know, but it's much better around like the boots and the feet. So yeah, just a tiny bit of tidy up there would be nice. I agree with Matt on the metals as well, what he said there. I thought when you've got very small details like doing NMM, most of it would be sort of reflective, if that makes sense. So like higher colors, it looks like you got a bit too much of your like shadow color in the gold, like on the hilt of the sword and on the pommel. So maybe just bump those up the tones a little bit. And then I also thought, yeah, with the bases, they look a little bit slapdash. It's kind of base, shade, dry brush, done. So maybe a little bit. It also looks like you've got like a bit of chalkiness happening with your dry brush. So forgive me if you're aware, but don't have a completely dry brush when you dry brush. You want it to have a little bit of moisture in it. Like when you touch the bristles to your hand, it just wants to feel a little bit cold. It doesn't want to feel wet. It just wants to feel cold. And that should give you a bit of a better application of the pigment when you dry brush it. But other than that, like all in all, they look really good. So thank you, Alessandro, and please come again. Okay, moving up to Matthias, I think that is Matthias. Dark Angel in the classic kind of Games Workshop heavy metal style, and I think the armor looks pretty good. Like you've got lovely travel of color again. I just thought you could take the highlights a little bit further in some places. So it looks like you've used like a base color, then you've done like a primary highlight and a secondary highlight. But like on the tops of these knee guards here and like the middle of the boots, like just add a little bit of like an ice yellow type color to this green, and just pick out some edges and points, sort of, you know, around the tops, corners of things. You know, if there's like a rounded surface, like pick out the middle of it just to take that highlight a little bit further. You'll be amazed how much it makes it pop. But like cleanliness of the edge highlighting, I think is pretty good. So you've done well there. The lenses of the helm, I thought you could take that a bit further. It looks in the pictures like it's kind of a flat red. So for doing lenses, like paint them black first, and then you do a red sort of insert on it, so you've got this like nice black outline. Much easier than trying to actually outline the lens in black. So paint the whole thing black first, then go red, and then take it brighter towards the front of the lens and darker towards the back, and then a tiny dot of white in the back corner and a tiny dot of white in the front corner. For doing lenses, your travel on the red on the weapons is much better, like going up through the orange spectrum, and picking out the corners and like the top edges and stuff. So that looks really good. Nice one there. With the texture on the cloak, it kind of I think the camera light is blowing it out a bit, and it's making it look brighter than it is. You can sort of tell by like the reflection on the plastic, or like on the top of the model, that your lighting is a bit bright, but it looks like you could shade it a little bit more and add some texture. But forgive me if that's not accurate, because like I say, it does look a bit blown out. But it's like nice smooth transitions and shadows where you'd expect to see them. So that's all good stuff. I thought the purity seals have got an opportunity there for some text, so you can either use very small brush or micron pen or something like that, just to get some fine lines and some dots, just to break up the surface. And also everyone kind of expects to see text on them. It is a bit of a hard thing to do, but looking at the, you know, the thickness of the thinness of your edge highlights, I think you've probably got a brush good enough to do it. So give that a crack. We only learn by practicing, so you've got nothing to lose. Drill the bolter. So this needs a little drilly hole in it, or at the very least paint a black circle in it. The heated barrel I thought looks really good, so nice work there. That looks like it's sort of just been fired and it's still kind of hot, so that's nice. Then the last thing I've got is like there's a bit of detail on his knee here that is screaming to be a different color. I would probably select gold for that. Nice and regal, so like that skull emblem thing that's there. And then like these flat armor panel on his chest and his other knee, and I think for the shoulders as well. Iconography would be awesome. All Space Marines come with transfers, unless you bought these from another source. So yeah, maybe some transfers or something, just to, you know, just to break up those armor surfaces a little bit. But in general, I think you did a really good job. So I hope all that helps. That was a bit of a blurb. There was a lot there. Sorry, Matthias. Matt, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, great advice, Jim. All around, and very little to add. I think if you have transfers, one on the shield would be great, on whatever that thing's called, tilting plate or whatever. Because it's a big flat area, and you've got the edge highlighting, but it is kind of blank. And then yeah, the chest eagle bit, it looks like there's a little tiny bit of spillover. Might just be the light between the kind of cream color you've used in the armor. And you might consider, I don't know what the Dark Angel scheme is like, but maybe you could use a different color, like a gold for that, because you know, it's quite similar looking to the cloth and to the purity seals. But I think if you were to put on some freehand text on the purity seals, that would solve a lot of that. And then if you just tidy up the edge of the chest eagle, like, it looks fine in that color, but I'm not sure exactly. I've never seen one done in that color, or maybe I have. I don't remember. Not much of a Space Marine player. Thanks very much for submitting. Hopefully that helps. Michael Smith submitted twice, so we're not doing that one. And then we have Tomas Denmark. Any feedback at all? Ignore the wooden block. And 3 pictures were taken before you black the edge place. Cool. So we won't tell you to do that again. Took me a while to figure out what this figure was. I thought it was. What did I think it was originally? Can't remember, but it's from Infinity. It's some combined army drop trooper guy. It's cool. Oh yeah, I thought it was an Eldar. But yeah, it's really cool. It's got that kind of space Eldar theme as well going on. I really like the. Where do I have my notes on this? I don't have them in order for some reason. Oh, here we go. Yeah, yeah. Very interesting use of colors. Like it's cool having that kind of like purple opposed with the blue. And I love the way you've kind of included that. Like it's all kind of one scheme. Like the space is one color and the armor is either is that color or it's reflecting the stuff, which looks awesome. I really love the way you've done that kind of non-metallic metal effect, especially on the armor panels on the legs, where we can see the like cast light is purple and the main light is like blue, like blue steel kind of look to it, or chrome. I think it's less strong on the helmet. The helmet looks a bit more like it's just a solid blue color. It doesn't look quite as reflective. You probably, because it's a fully wrapping arranged shape, so it's kind of tricky to decide where you're going to place things on that. Let me just see, is there a picture where you can kind of see it? It doesn't really look like in any of the angles you get that like kind of underlighting. So I'm not sure if you were going for like more of a ceramic finish on the helm or whatever. It looks pretty cool that way, but I think like I really love the effect you've got on the legs. And then I think some of your like the kind of flamey type effects look quite good, but I think you're using maybe a little bit too much white, especially on like his foot. There's like it's like he's standing on a rock or something, but it looks unpainted. So that might be the bit you were talking about blacking out actually. But as well, like you've got a very, very bright light source kind of on either side of his head. So you could maybe tone that down a little bit, maybe even have it like get dark a little bit around the edge before it goes to his head, just so that we're looking more at the head than at the horns, if that makes sense. And then the wingy thingies also look cool. It's got a very cool like theme to the piece overall. The whole like standing on the diamond of space is pretty cool. Looks like you had a lot of trouble photographing it, which makes sense. I'm not sure how it's going to look like in the hand, but it's a really cool. I've never seen something done in this way, so nice job. And thanks for being. Hopefully that helps, Jim.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? I got the impression that it's he's like skating across a splintered shard of reality. As the instant things like, whoa, cool, never seen that before. And this does look. I mean, I'm assuming it's supposed to be like a piece of the universe. So with that, it looks really cool, like the way you've got the sort of the classic galactic colours infused in there. But it does seem to be lacking stars. So maybe if you like if it's supposed to be a piece of a galaxy or whatever, spatter some white paint on to act as stars. And then you could also go a little bit further, like with stippling in these galaxies, like just to make them a bit hotter. But all in all, generally pretty awesome. Agree with what Matt said about the armor. That's all absolutely bang on. I thought the back of it though looked really unfinished in comparison to the armor. It just looks like you didn't go as far, unless it's supposed to be like a different material which is not as reflective as the legs. But I think it kind of needs a little bit more anyway. Like some edges aren't picked out. There isn't as much contrast in it. It's brighter at the top than it is at the bottom. Yes, okay. That's about it though. And some of the edges are a bit rougher than like the armor. So I know some people aren't particularly bothered about the back of the model, but it's got paint on it. I would argue that it probably needs to be as good as the front, or at least a little bit better than what it is now. It just kind of feels like it isn't finished, you know. But all the rest of it, yeah, looks really, really good. Really sold, like the reflective armor effect and like the heated elements in the gun and the armor and the horns and stuff all look pretty good, yeah. So nice one, Thomas. Thank you very much. Okay, moving up to Duarte, latest bust finished, wants to get a bit more poppiness again. So could the contrast be bigger, and how? Is it a lack of freehand or added detail? You are correct. It is down to the contrast, but it's not really a lack of freehand or added detail. It is purely the contrast. So for me, your shadows are lacking. So, painting is as much about painting the light that is there as it is painting the light that's not there as well. So to get things to really pop, you need to have at least 5 variants of a color on every single element of the piece, and they all need to be in unison, like from where the light's coming from. So this is a very general lighting scheme. So basically the theory is the underneath needs to be a lot darker than the top. And it is a little bit, but like if you take the green, for example, you've got add a push 3 tones to the green. Like there's 1 here, there's 2 in the middle here, and there's 3 underneath there. So I'd say you've got here, so 1 should be your brightest highlight, 5 should be your deepest shadow. Your paint job across everything is residing here in the midtones, so 2, 3, and 4. So you need more highlight, you need more shadow, and you need to, in fact, the shirt mainly is pretty much just 3, maybe a bit of 2. It doesn't go as dark in these folds, and it doesn't go as high on the ridges as it needs to. So it's a really harsh thing to say because you've obviously spent a long time on the bust. The skin looks a lot better, especially in his face. But there does need to be an awful lot more, and you'll be surprised how high you can take highlights on skin and it not look too high. You think like you're going in there with like an ice yellow, and you're whoa, that looks really bright on the palette and on the brush, but when you integrate it into what's there, and when they dry, they obviously go transparent and show what's underneath. You'll be surprised how far you can push it, and it won't look weird. So that's the answer for the poppiness. But I really like the color scheme you've used on it, like classic woodland color schemes, very neutral, very natural. I like how you've added extra interest into things like the feather and the fletching on the arrows. The small details on these little, I don't even know what they are. They look like teddy bears of some sort, but they look a little bit menacing, so I'm not really sure what they are. And I was also interested how you did this string, whether it came like that or whether you did that yourself. If you did that yourself, great job. And if you didn't do that yourself, then great job, because you didn't snap it somehow whilst painting it. So either way, great job on the string. I thought that's really cool. Really well balanced color scheme overall. The bow is another really good example of needing more color. It's pretty much just one color. It's just flat. You might have done a little bit of edging here and there. But you need to add some on the bow. You could argue, you could freehand some detail in there. You could try putting some wood grain in there, or some sort of what's it called, like a gilded effect, like a gold leaf type effect on the bow, something like that. Even a silver one. They do silver leafing as well. So just something along those lines to break up a large, flat, long surface like that. I'd probably go with wood grain, to be honest. But yeah, you've made a really, really strong start. I don't know how long you've been painting for, obviously, Duarte, but contrast is king to making things pop. So have a go with all that. I hope that's helpful and you didn't think I'm being too critical, because it's very clean, it's well separated, you've got a good eye for detail, so there's a lot of positive things. It's just break that contrast, blow it way out wider, way down low shadows, and really, really high highlights is the way you get that poppiness. Okay, so thank you. I'll hand you over to Matt now for some more.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. Like Jim said, I really love the kind of slightly bluish green, and then it has kind of orangish skin tone. It is a very nice scheme, and I think you do have a good amount of freehand and nice tone in there as well. It seems like the biggest opportunity, as Jim said, is for the green, and I think this is a hot take by Matt, but green for me is actually a problem color. Forget about yellow, red, all that kind of stuff. Because when you look at, particularly for clouds, because basically green is usually what happens is, I don't know, what I think you did here is you start off with the green, and then you just kind of highlighted it with a slightly lighter green and a slightly darker green. But then it gets very desaturated very quickly. So that's probably why you didn't want to do more levels in there. And then what a lot of people do to get around this is if you use a cold green for your shadows, and then you have to use a warm green for your highlights. So like if you had his hat goes up into a yellow green on the edges, and then his coat or jacket or whatever is mostly that color, and then it goes into a very dark blue green or even a blue in the shadows. That gives you extra room for like level contrast, and it gives you contrast of temperature as well, which is super popular and it looks very good. But it's not necessarily super realistic because people often wear just flat green clothes, which I think is what you were going for here. But when you have flat green clothes, what happens is that you have these edge highlights that are actually white. And what it is like the little fibers on the edge of the cloth are picking up light and like refracting it as white. And then you have to be like incredibly careful about how you place those. And it's just like very annoying, and it's very easy for it to get washed out and not look so great. So I would say try that where you use a cool green for your shadows and a warm green for your highlights. And that'll like immediately kind of like add a lot of vibrancy and pop, which is, as you said, what you're looking for. Skin, as Jim said, looks really nice. I think you could have a little bit more, like you have the red in the cheeks, but in the hands, in particular, like the fingernails, like he looks kind of like he's a bit tanned, but like his fingernails should be quite like pink compared to the surrounding skin because you don't tan really under your fingernails, whereas these fingernails are kind of darker looking than the rest of it. And then the arrow that's in the bow also looks a little bit like it's had less attention paid to it in terms of just kind of having like solid tones on it. But when you're painting busts, there's so much stuff to deal with, and like it's very hard to do everything up to like your maximum grade standard. I think it's a really nice looking piece, and it's great to see you submitting more and working on this. And busts, they're always going to take longer than you think, but hopefully we've given you a little bit of advice. That string, as Jim said, is amazingly good. Like immediately elevates the piece a lot. And hopefully, happy painting in the future. Look forward to seeing more from you then. Thank you. So John Israel doing some more Infinity Dudes. Some sort of heavy infantry guy from Yujing now. Cool. Has it always been Yujing? I think it's doing Han Oceania, but I haven't played Infinity in a long time, so they've changed the aesthetic a little bit. So trying to get the lighting right in the back and feedback on the gun color and freehand work. So I think the gun is nice. That is like, I think traditionally Yujing do have like orange guns, but also it's a good contrast color with your blue scheme or your blue-white scheme. I think the lighting on the back certainly looks like a step up from previous things. It looks like he's wearing like white carapace armor and he has some metallic bits on his legs, and there's like light that's like cold light bouncing around in there. So yeah, definitely you're kind of like reining it in and like focusing a bit more. I think it's definitely showing improvement. The little freehands on the shoulder looks great. On the gun, they could be maybe like a tiny bit tidier, like more like parallel, but that's very, very nitpicky. But like having them on there is definitely a good idea. I think it adds a lot. I think you maybe could have a little bit more separation in between like the panels of the helmet, especially where it like recesses in under like his shoulder thing. Like that should go into like a very dark there because like it's like an overhang type of thing. And then some of the glow on the like the wingy things looks a little bit kind of speckledy. I'm not entirely sure like that's kind of what you're going for. I do like it, but it's just the finish looks a little bit like not 100% smooth. So I'm not sure if that's what you're going for, or if it's like an artifact of like using an airbrush or what have you. But it's just like an observation that I made. And then I think maybe his holster thing for his handgun could be like you could do that with the orange or have some orange detailing on it, because at the moment it just looks like just a kind of a brown lump. If that makes sense. And then do the handle to integrate that in with the gun, if that makes sense. Yeah, but yeah, great work all around. Good to see these, and also totally appreciate these are like really, really small, really, really detailed guys. So you're very dedicated for sticking with them and doing this like quite elaborate scheme on them as well. Jim?
Yeah, it's great to see these coming along, isn't it? You're really, really dialing in on this like this method on these guys now. Like the smoothness is so much better. The light placement is a lot better. I really, really enjoy how what I think is going on here is, yeah, there's cold light shading it, but these are also reflecting the blue that's on the base. So like the intensity of the blue on like the lower legs and like the knee pads and stuff is a lot more intense than how it's getting up like above his waist. And that's really coming across nicely. The contrast is really great on like the backs of the legs as well. Like this bright specular highlight treating this calf as like a sphere. Is perfect. You got great travel in the colours there again. So yeah, you're really getting along really, really well with these guys now. I think the colour for the gun is super, but yes, maybe if you could dot some more of that orange colour around a little bit here and there, that would help. But not a massive deal, I don't think, with these guys. And then yeah, definitely these holsters need spicing up a little bit. They're really, really flat, and I mean, it doesn't let the piece down, but it's just, you know, the eye is drawn to it because you go, wow, smoothness, contrast, interference, edge highlights, wow, and then it's just, as Matt says, a brown lump. So it's attracting attention, but you know, there's really no reason for it because you're more than capable of bringing that up to like a good leather standard. So, or if it is leather, kind of looks like it needs to be. Yeah, so really good stuff. Loving watching this coming on, and also these little pink dashes on the base. I love it. I think that looks really cool. I haven't noticed that on any of the others. But yeah, that's really fun. That's really funky. I like that. Nice one. Thank you, John. Please come again. Okay, up to Stephen, who's got this three-headed, some sort of chaotic monstrosity. 3 months to do. Pleased with the shield and the heads. Any feedback is welcome. So, yeah, I thought this was very strong, well-defined, cleanly done. Great travel in all of the colours. Apart from the horns on Mr. Chaos Lord's head, and the like talons that are sort of on the wings, those jumped out as being there's stuff there, but it looks like very desaturated and washed out. I like how you've done like the tips of the horns darker to kind of bring attention down towards the rider. I like that, but I just think it's lacking a lot of vibrancy in this. So I'd push this like saturation up in the horns and get like the very tips to be like black, very black, like as black as the armor, but a very gradual transition, and only the very, very tip would be hyper black. Just that level of contrast would really help, I think. And the same goes for the talons that are on the wings, and this little horn that's coming out of his shoulder, I think, would be really, really useful, because, you know, the travel, the contrast, the gamma in all of the rest of it is really, really nice. I love what you've done with the wing membrane. That looks really strong. Same for these bone tips here on these wing structures. They need some more love. The black, did I have a note for the black? Yeah, the black area is well edged, but next time, because you know, this obviously took a long time. Maybe explore like the volumetric of black as well, rather than just starting out with wham black. You can paint it sort of up through the grades. So 50% of the surface, if 50% of it is black, it will sell as black. It won't look grey or silver or anything like that. If at least 50% is black, and then you can start taking it up through the greys, just to give it some volumetric lighting on it. Because I know the heavy metal style in you know, the Space Marine teams, they just go flat black and then edge highlight, and that's fine in their style, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you've done a piece like this where everything else is like very smoothly transitioned, you've got to kind of carry that across the black because they look a little bit disjointed. You know, why do you have smooth color transitions like on the pink and the green and the blue, and then the black is just flat black? Do you know what I mean? And it is also kind of fleshy. Sorry, it also kind of fleshy, so it would have, you know, like a smoother transition to it. But yeah, maybe not for this guy. I love what you did with the tail, like this variation, having this white skin in here. That's very, very cool, and the little orange flamey tail things look awesome as well. Hooves could do with a bit more love as well as part of the the bone and the horn, color scheme. Just looks like it could do with some more saturation and some more like striations in it. That would be really, really cool. But overall, looks great. Looks really, really awesome. Striking. The colors are well balanced. The flaming sword is awesome. So yeah, you should be very, very proud of it. Oh, looking at the base, actually, I was a bit zoomed in there. Maybe go a little bit further with the base. I like the color that you've got and how you've the ground itself looks awesome, but I think it just needs more on it. That's a very big base and there's not much going on. So just anything you could use to bring a little bit more interest to the base would be cool, be it skulls or discarded weapons or broken buildings, bits of ruins, anything really, a corpse, anything. I think it would just make it look a lot more interesting. So yeah, thank you, Stephen. Nice submission. Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, very great looking model. Serious amount of painting on this. Just the amount of details and the amount of edging and all these different stuff. I can totally appreciate how it took you 3 months. Like 3 months is probably a good amount of time to spend on this. You could spend on that. Yeah. So not a huge amount to add. Like this guy, again, it's tricky in that he's got so much going on. So all the big stuff looks great. The tail, I love that color transition in the tail. The choice for the underbelly color is great. Wings all look great. The whole body of the demony beast looks really good, which is like 90% of the model. I think maybe the like corn head, like the teeth are a little bit stark white, and then the horns are a little bit like plain bony yellow color. It might be nice to try and like unify, like because you've got different kind of palettes that you use for like his horns and his teeth, the corn head, and then different, which is somewhat different from like the actual dragon, and then I think you get away with it on the Nurgle guy because he's got his own scheme. But just to have those bits, if you just use the same paints, and then you can like use more of the dark color on the Nurgle horns, and then more of the light one on bits where you want it to be light. It just kind of gels everything together. Because this guy, because he's so busy, you want to have as much that is unified as you can, because you have to do the 3 different heads, because that's the way it is. But yeah, I think he looks really good. Definitely, I'd be happy with the shield and the heads. You could maybe, if you wanted to, do like a little bit more of an edge highlight in the middle of the flamey sword, and then possibly on the edges. But again, so much stuff on this, you have to pick what to focus on. I think he looks absolutely great. So love to see more of the army or whatever it is you're doing. Just for display, it also looks really nice too. Thanks for submitting. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We're going to move up to Kelsey Elizabeth Mira. Finished up this, like, I think it's like an orc or dragon man or something. So unfortunately, we can't really say a huge amount about this because looks like the main feedback is going to be on photographs, unfortunately, because you don't want to use a colored background, especially like use a red background and the figure is mostly red. So what happens is your camera does color balancing, so it tries to like take away any like artificial redness from the background that messes up the colors of the piece. And then also, like, you physically have, like, if you shine a light on a red piece of paper, it bounces actual red light out. So it's very hard to tell what parts of the figure are painted red and what, with the OSL you're going for, and what ones actually have red light physically incident on them in the picture. Like you can see on the side of his leg, and there's like a halo around his weapon where like there's red light hitting it that isn't, that's actually physically there. Which is kind of cool, but obviously it interferes with like our perception of it quite a bit. And I think maybe you took the photos from very close up, or even if you didn't, like, so obviously what we recommend is take it a bit further back, crop in, but maybe don't crop in so much, just because not having any kind of context around the figure makes it hard to make out what's going on there as well. So all that said, I quite like him. I like the way you've done a lot of freehand work on him in that bright yellow. I like the way your color scheme is very much all warms. You got like warm brown, you got red, you got yellow. It's very thematic. He looks like he's from some sort of lava world or whatever, or he's like kind of elementally themed or what have you. And even like the coal black for the hair and stuff. It's very, very thematic. I think you could have some of your lines could be a little bit straighter, that's just a practice thing as well. You want to make sure when you're freehanding, basically lock all your hands together and you hold the piece against the table and you do this. You just physically like draw your thumb and index finger down, and that'll give you the straightest line possible with the shortest space. So I don't know if you know that yourself, but that's just generally how it's done. If you look at people doing like Sergio Calvo doing like super close in stuff, he's just literally going like just using your fingers, because that'll give you like the most control over it. Then other than that, so you were talking about fur texture as well as the OSL. I don't think the fur texture is coming out. Like, I'm not sure what you mean by that, because like he's got a lot of like yellow lines on his hair and face, which I took to be like painted on, like they're war paint or what have you. So it definitely works in terms of that being like picked out. But it's not like super reading as like a particular like texture on there. And it's kind of tricky as well with his hair. It could be like scales or whatever. But I do like the way you've like done all the ridges that are painted into his tail and all that kind of thing. I think like it looks quite nice. Hopefully you do well in the competition. If you're submitting the pictures online, if it's physical competition, grand. If you're submitting pictures online for the competition, get a whole set of new pictures, because they're not really doing the figure justice, unfortunately. But great work, regardless. I'll pass you over to Jim now.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick with this picture because I think that gives the best representation of what's really there. But next time, yeah, as Matt says, plain background, please. Black, grey, white is all you need. So with the OSL, yeah, I think it just about sells. You could make it a bit hotter, like towards the bottom. I'm guessing it's like for a lava-y type base. So you've got some instances of like the orange color a bit higher up, and that's fine. But I think if that's orange is getting that high, then down here needs to be a lot brighter, a lot hotter. But in general, I think it sells. There's some area that didn't have it on, like here, which I didn't really get. But in general, yeah, I think it looks like a lava base, so that's cool. And there's some instances then, I think, where the red is coming up and interfering with him as well. If not, then there should be, but only a very, very little bit, and only this very, very soft, like corn red that you've got going on. I think I can spot like texturing it did on the fur of like not his head, but actually on his legs. I think he's supposed to be furry, like super fine hashing of lines, and that's good. But I would take it further. So that is to say, brighter on surfaces where that are higher up and more sort of affected by the general light. So just take the highlights a little bit further. That would be cool. I like the like graining effect that you've gone for in the wood. I think that's come out quite nice. But again, highlights need to go a lot higher. That's pretty much the theme overall of it. I get he's kind of in sort of a dark space, but he does still need to be a little bit brighter. It doesn't have to be everywhere. A wise man once said, if you highlight everything, you've highlighted nothing. So just pick some areas that are going to be brighter, just to push the contrast up. Like I say, it doesn't need to be everywhere, but some of these like muscle structures do need to just have a little bit more emphasis on them, to make it more eye-catching. But that said, yeah, I think you've done a pretty good job. So good luck in the competition. And yes, go on YouTube and look up how to photograph your miniatures. You will find a wealth of information, many videos, all very helpful. So good luck, Kelsey. Thank you very much. And moving up now to Michael Smith's actual one, which is kind of a shame because the other one, I'm just going to tell you that I thought that looked really cool. So yeah, well done. I think you did a great job with that. That's selling quite good. So be proud of that one anyway. Anyway, on to Snake. I haven't played this game for ages, and I think I might have to now after seeing this. From Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, amazing game, wasn't it? Painted by me. Oh, good. So what did we have? I thought it looked really cool. You've nailed like the palette for it. I think this kind of very grayish infused armor and like very desaturated green. Looks great. I would probably separate it a little bit stronger though. That is to say, darker lines, like where different. There's a lot of items, a lot of panels and straps and bags and pouches and pockets. So just, I'm not saying like slap a load of wash all over it, but like very thin pin shading between all of the different panels. A little bit darker would be really helpful, I think. Then the next thing, good job on the skin. I thought the skin had a good tone to it. The kind of rough looking dude, but yeah, I think the skin was a nice tone. Don't really think you need to do much more there to make it pop. That looks cool. I thought an area for possible improvement was the rock. A, it's very, very grey, and B, it's very, very close to his clothes. So get some more tones in on that rock would be really, really helpful. Greens, browns, purples, blues, anything you like can go into rock. It just has to be very soft, very subtle. Browns too. So you need to vary this rock. And maybe there's a space for a tuft or two, maybe just to break it up as well. Or maybe like a splash of blood or something like that, because he was a pretty violent guy. There might have been a bit of blood flying around when he's in the room. So there's that. And then with the fire, so soften the glow cast I've got. So it's a good tone for it, but I reckon the higher up the model you go, you need to start bringing this down the hue range. So it wouldn't be that orange this high up. It's good this orange like down here because it's kind of the mid-tone of the fire, but then it needs to be sort of getting gradually more towards the red end of the spectrum to help that, because it's kind of the same orange, same intensity pretty much all the way up him, and it needs to be fading away. And then that also being said, you need some stronger shadows on the back as well. So like where the light's coming up from here, hitting this belt like this would be really dark under here, because it's obviously this light is overpowering like the cold. It's almost like a moonlight kind of light from the front. So it's pretty weak, but this is very, very strong light coming up from here. So there needs to be like more shadow above here, and then probably make the fire a bit hotter in some places as well. It doesn't need to go all the way up to pure white, but a little bit more like white in the yellow, if that makes sense. Like towards the bottom, and then maybe just a couple of hot spots stippled in here and there. But generally, I think he did a great job, like rendering the flame going to smoke, and then like the soot on the tips. I think you did a really good job with the fire in all. But yeah, maybe just make it a tiny bit hotter towards the base of it. But yeah, really great stuff overall. Yeah, you should be proud of this, man. Looks really, really great. So well done, nice one, Matt.
Yeah, I really like it. I like how you really match the palette from the game, and then I love how much like the face still draws attention even though it's so small, because it's like the brightest, most saturated kind of part of the whole front view. So I think it's really nice because it's something that could get lost pretty easily. OSL, I think, generally looks really, really good from both sides, but then, as Jim was saying, from the back, it starts to kind of like fall apart a little bit. One of the biggest issues for me is like his bandana is like perfectly well lit, and it goes down his back, and then that section of his back isn't. So like it doesn't seem like you're entirely certain. Like it looks a bit like you were doing a he's lit from the front and then the OSL is from behind, but he's also clearly lit from above. So like you should probably have like you should be able to see the color in his like his upper back, and then go to a really deep shadow for like maybe his lower back, and you can imagine he's like up against the wall and he's only lit kind of like 3/4 of the way around. But like yeah, that's like the biggest issue, as Jim said, where it's just like there's too much of the orange, it's going too far up the back, and it doesn't quite fit with the whole scenario. Generally, all these looks look the best when you have it from the side, or we have like it's like a rim light, so it looks really, really good from both sides. But just have a think about what way the lighting is working in the back, because you're kind of like in between two ideas of him being lit directly from the front or from being lit from like the front and above, and also then from behind. So that's just something to think about for yourself. Also, please don't submit two things because it just kind of messes up our like running order, because we like write notes on more notes on like kind of every other one that we're expecting to talk about more. So just like, and the submissions are up in all months, so just like pick what piece you want to put it in when it suits you. Next up, this Predator from Prey. Yeah, I actually recognize this. I've seen the film once, but I was like, oh yeah, that's the one from Prey. So yeah, extremely true to the film. Like I thought, like I was literally able to tell, like not only is it Predator, it's like that particular Predator from that film. Um, you've obviously like done your due diligence, looking at reference pictures. It's got a lot of like different like hues and tones of the skin, which is really nice. And I like the way you've done like kind of like the metallic effects on the shield and the like armor plates and stuff. It's generally like very good looking and very representative of what it was supposed to be. Um, the base is, I think you said you did it later, but I think it kind of shows that like the green is way too saturated for like, I mean, it's a while since you've seen that film, but like it's not like a very bright, vibrant kind of environment they're in. It's green, but it's going to be like quite dark green in the area and going into black. Whereas like he looks like he's in very moody atmospheric lighting, like there's a lot of fog and stuff in the film. But then the ground is like it's a bright summer's day. Um, but that's easily fixed. Just like do some washes of some sort of darker color in there, because you don't really want to have vibrant saturated colors down in the face because it draws attention down, and you've got a lot of really nice subtle like contrast of hue like in through the skin and in through the other bits, and it gets a little bit lost with this kind of because your eye tracks down a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, Jim, do you want to hop in?
Yeah, sure. I didn't see the movie yet. Poor show. So you saying it's very, very true to the film and like the tones of the skin and stuff. Okay, I bow to your superior wisdom. I like how it's got this like. Sorry.
You can see the actor in like one of the in the background of one of the shots, and he's got like that like a blood going in his chest kind of thing in the actual suit from the.
Oh, in one of these photos.
Kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. There. Ah, I hadn't spotted that. Ah, yes. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, so yeah, great rendering of it. I did think though, like I'd made these notes before I knew that, but I thought like where you've got the brighter areas of the skin, I thought maybe you could punch them up a bit. And looking at that picture, maybe that's true. So yeah, just like brightening some of them, and like you've got the good tones on the skin itself, but there's not that much like volumetric highlighting on it. So again, that's tricky when it's like a 3-4 tone like skin pattern that's on there. But generally, I just think shading some of these like muscle structures a little bit more on the underneath would be helpful. I get that that's a whip as well. That's not a finished one. So I go back now to the ones with Nebula in, which are the finished ones. Yeah, so yeah, it was just kind of volumetric. I know he's a massive piece, and you kind of need to. Some people say you need to worry about that less when it's the scale, but I think you could do a bit more with the volumetrics on the skin. But like the tones that you've got and the cleanliness of it is all really, really nice, and like the metals really cool. Like they still have this very like extraterrestrial like tone feel to them. So yeah, whatever you've done with the metals, like imbuing these other like purples and browns, I think, and blues in there is really, really cool way of making it feel alien. As obviously is alien. So yeah, that was all very good. I thought that the gums, teeth, and nails could maybe have a bit more detail to them. They kind of just look a little bit flat. So yeah, just pushing some more tones around just to A, separate them from what they're next to, and B, just bring a little bit more contrast to them. That would be cool. And then on the base was my last point, which again looks really good, but just make the rim black, please. It's got to be a black rim. But I kind of agree what Matt said as well. It's a bit of a jump in like brightness, like down on the bottom. So yeah, maybe if you made some of it a bit darker, that would be cool too. But yeah, awesome. Like applaud the effort that's gone into it. That is a huge thing that you've achieved here. So yeah, really well done. Looks awesome. Nice one, Justin. Thank you very much. And then we have Alexis Bonaire next. Gulk the Skull Crusher finished. Painted for a competition. Very happy with how it turned out. So not asking for any specific feedback. And there isn't going to be much either, to be honest, because it's really very good again. I love how you've got like very bold, very bright green, very bright, very bold red, but you've avoided Christmas effect so well. It's just awesome. I think it's because there's so much dark and dinge in like the red. Looks great. Really, really nice. Like the skin, like the subtle skin tones that are in the green, like to make him feel more alive. Awesome stuff. Great contrast and separation across the whole thing. The weathering and the mud placement, like on the knees and on his arse, because he's obviously blood bowl, so they're spending a lot of time knocked on their ass, and like it's just really, really well placed mud. It's really great. So one of the things I picked out maybe you could do is like I mentioned like the skin tone in the green, like nipples and lips and fingernails and veins and stuff. Amazing place to have that is on elbows, like especially elbows because they get beaten and bashed. It's very thin skin, and it's going to be rubbing as well against the armor that he's wearing. So get some of those red flesh tones on these elbows. Absolutely. It's also a nice way to break up the like the big green and brown back of him. So yeah, definitely do that. Then the back of this goblin dude looks really, really dark as well. And I love that he's giving somebody the bird because he's just been absolutely walloped and his whole face is swollen up, and that's beautifully rendered. And then he's giving somebody the finger and hiding behind the big guy. I love that. It's a great little fun addition to it. And that looks like Goretrek as well. That's down there as well, which is kind of fun. I like that. Got absolutely mullered by a fat orc. So yeah, the only other thing was I thought the plume maybe looked. It's okay from like this angle, like you've got the highlight and you've got the contrast there, but from any other angle, it's very, very dark. So maybe get some more volumetric in there, pick out some, or maybe even do like a color streak that's gone through it in some way. Just a bit more interest in the plume because it is a big part of it, and it's right in the middle, right at the top of the model. So yeah, just something else going on with that plume would be really helpful. But you know, this is a stunning piece yet again. Should be very proud of it. Oh, I've just noticed this skull as well, that given the red card. I didn't even notice that before. Yeah. That's really, really cool, and that eye is painted beautifully as well in there. Look at that. That's awesome. So yeah, great stuff all around, Alexis. Again, very, very well done, and good luck with the competition. Please let us know how you get on with it, Matt.
Yeah, you should totally be happy with this. It's great, and it's right up your street. Like I love the way you picked this model. Like clearly, really enjoyed it. It's really in your like wheelhouse stuff you've been working on. I think the only thing Jim didn't mention that I really like is the like the volumetric highlight of the skin of the dwarf. Like he looks so 3D and like really well rendered when he is like literally a part of the base, and it's like just for the amount of story that is going on. I don't know where this piece is from, but it's amazing. Like the amount like the story in such a small area where you have like the referee is dead and like all this stuff happening, and you've like managed to really like been really artistic in terms of how you like picked out your areas of light and shadow to give us make it clear like you can see where every character starts and ends, and like we have like extra little things to go around and enjoy in there, like the gemstone eye in his like skull plate thing that looks amazing. All of those, there's like little bits of freehand on his armor and stuff that looks really, really good. I think the choice to use like white pants is like really like bold, and you've done a really good job of being like these are bright white, but it's not drawing too much attention away, and it's like because they're all like mud spattered and stuff, and it gives us that like feeling that you know they're under like a strong light in the situation that they're in. So yeah, it looks really, really good. Like Jim said, the plume is probably the most outstanding. Like it looks like it maybe could have more attention paid to it. I thought the kind of skirt on the back looks a bit brown. Could do maybe having a little bit more red in there, because it's obviously red on the front. It's like a very minor thing. It could be the angle of the photos as well that we're looking at it. And then that's like really it. Like I think he looks really, really good. So good luck in competition, and yeah, let us know how you get on. I really like this piece. Cool. Next up, last piece for the month, we've got Sasha Pretty. First boss in this size, focus on the skin and the hair, and the weapon is still finished or
Not
needs to be
finished.
finished. I assume needs to be finished. Yeah, is still finished. So yeah, generally we don't really like review whips. We'll give you a little bit of feedback on this one, but the problem is even when I'm looking at it, like I can look at her skin and her hair, but like then I'm like, well, is the metal around her face finished? And is the metal because the gun isn't? And it gets hard to kind of like mentally. A lot of the time, stuff can look unfinished when it's beside something that's unfinished, and it's hard to not get like distracted by it. So we'll do our best. Um, but in future, please submit properly finished. Like it's not that you're happy that it's finished. You could always come back and work on it a little bit. But having anything like unfinished in an area, it's sometimes it affects our perception of the piece overall. Okay, so by the way, the camo pattern on the gun I really like. So good job with that. The skin is really nice. I love the way you got like that scarring in there. You got that nice dark skin tone, but you got a good range of color in it. You got the stubble in the hair. I think there's like a bit of spillover between the skin color and the hair on the front of her face, and then also on her hair with like the kind of braid that wraps around the top. Like you've got the brown hair color in the side of it, which I'm not sure if it's spillover or if you were thinking like, oh, there's brown hair there. But like if she had brown hair growing out there, it would like get wrapped up in the braid, so it wouldn't just like sit on one side. That wouldn't make like any sense because it wouldn't. That's not how braids work. If that makes sense to you. Then if we flip over to the other side quickly, I think the skin on her arm, like it's got a nice kind of hue to it, but it's more kind of monochromatic than the has less range than the face. And it's like it just looks generally kind of darker. Whereas like you should have like areas that are lighter and darker because she looks like she kind of tanned or has she's got like light exposed areas on her forehead, but also they would be the same on like her upper arm. And also where you have like the cables going into her arm, that could be like red and raw and injured looking and like bruised and stuff. Because you've got like the wrecked up bandages as well and around the plugs and things. So that's just nice way of adding detail without, and adding interest to the flesh as well on the arm because that's your main opportunity there. Um, and then hand could have a little bit more on like the knuckles and things. Like people have very quite pale hands generally relative to the rest of their skin, their complexion. Um, and it's an area of focus for people. And be careful about like again cleanliness on the edge of the weapon. Basically, you have this problem where when I pick up something, there's like physically a gap in between my hand and the thing I'm holding, but on a model there isn't. It is one piece, so you have to go in and like paint a dark line around there to show that it's like wrapping around under, because otherwise it starts to look like you immediately go, it's just a piece of plastic, it's a figurine. And the hair, I really like the way you've done like all these wacky kind of tones in it. It's a little bit hard to make out where the highlights exactly are. So have a think about that. Like you want to have it where there's a change of direction, so it wraps over her head here, but then also if it wraps the other way, anywhere it's like concave or convex, and you'll get basically white highlights because hair tends to have white highlights because it refracts light out of it. So no matter what color it is, you'll still go up to like quite a bright highlight. And it can be tinted with the color that's underneath, but it doesn't actually necessarily have to be. Um, yeah, that's all I've got to say. Jim?
Yeah, really good start. I'm going to say start because we know it's not completely finished. So with the hair, I'll start with. Yeah, I really like the colors, the wacky cyberpunky like scheme, and that's cool. But I'd probably push some shadow colors around, like in some of the folds, just to bring the structure of the hair out a little bit. I think the highlights are pretty much there in most places. So you can work the contrast obviously by going the other way. So work the shadows, which will be a really really nice start. So you're going to be really dark in here, darker against the head. Then on this side, it would come where these folds are, like the shape of the head, and where it's kind of tucked in and rolled around the shoulder. So it'd be shadow in here, shadow down there. So that would be helpful. With the skin, again, good start, but I think you need to go way further with it. So she's in the battle, she's probably sweaty, so it'd be quite a lot sheenier than this as well. But not only that, but where you've got like these plugs and stuff, it's you've got a really hard highlight that needs to happen around here and around here, and then they're really nice places to put like pink and red tones and some purple as well to show like bruising of the flesh, because that's obviously not how humans are supposed to be. So like these implants would have like this reaction, and there's load. This is lock and load, isn't it? This bus. I'm sure you've looked at reference pics for this before, but like some of like the best ones of these, they incorporate into that. Well, so does any class piece really that's got these like skin implants in cyborgs, where the skin is obviously still alive. So yeah, that would be really really good. I love how you've done these bandages, like with bits of seemingly blood coming out of it. That looks really cool. And also like the scarring, I think's come out really really well, but you need to push the highlights on the face a little bit more. You've got much better like rosy tones in the face, and I think that's really good, but you just need like general higher value of highlight. And then the rest of the colors just look really flat. I'll be honest. I'll be brutally honest. So like the armor, the green, and like the yellow pipes. So I know it's not completely finished. This is why we don't like doing whips, because we don't know how far you've really gone with it yet. But make sure that you're getting these well separated, shaded, highlighted nicely. And you'll be on a really, really good road, I think. It's a wicked bust. It's one that I've been meaning to do myself for a long time, actually. So, yeah, keep cracking at it. I hope that helps, and submit it again when you've finished it. And yeah, look forward to seeing it again. So, thank you, Sasha. And that's the end, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, thanks to everyone for submitting their work. We know it's not an easy thing to take pictures of your work, and we can be pretty critical of it. But hopefully, we've given you all some measured feedback and some to work on in your next month. And then we'd be more than happy to see anyone who wants to submit for next month. The event should be open in the next couple of days, and we'll see you then.